By now you should be somewhat familiar with the concept of visual storytelling and how important cinematography is to that concept. Remember, getting good shots is more than just pointing the camera at something. You need to understand principles of composition, shot size, angles, and movement. We've already discussed some of the principles of good composition, shot size, and camera angles. But there are some additional concepts that you need to know to help you get the best looking shots possible. So let's start with more composition. While understanding the rule of thirds is important, there's more to it than just putting eyes, faces, or horizon lines on the top or bottom third. Headroom simply refers to the amount of space above an object or person. Generally speaking, we want to minimize this space. Now, I know it sounds a bit violent, but in some situations, it's okay to cut off part of the head or top of an object, which you might do in a close-up and will definitely do in an extreme close-up. There are also some scenarios where it's appropriate to exaggerate headroom in order to make your character feel small, less important, sad, or inferior, like in this shot. Notice the massive amount of headroom as he's placed on the bottom right third of the image. Next is nose and lead room, which are pretty much the same thing except for one major difference. Nose room simply refers to the amount of space in front of an object or character. Generally speaking, you should compose the shot so that most of the frame is in front of the character, so it gives them something to look into. Now, if your story calls for it, you could choose to frame it so that the character is looking into the short side of the frame. This is called short sighting. Notice how in this shot, she's looking into the short side. This is because her character literally has nothing to look forward to as she's about to die. Sounds pretty depressing, but it's an amazing way to visualize what the character is feeling. There are many ways to use both nose room and short sighting to help you tell your story, and the effect varies depending on the degree to which it was used. Lead room is pretty much the exact same thing as nose room, except the object is moving. When a car is driving, a person is walking or running, it's good to lead them by placing the wide side of the frame in front of them. Utilizing these compositional tools in addition to the rule of thirds will help you tell more effective stories, but there's one other tool we can use to make our shots more meaningful, and that's camera movement. Camera movement plays an important role in cinematography. Not only does it make your shots look more produced and cinematic, but good movement can direct your audience, help them focus on something specific, and reveal new and important information. It's not always necessary to move your camera though. Sometimes the best shot is one that's not moving at all. It just depends on whether the best way to tell your story is through static shots, which don't move, or dynamic shots, which include camera movement. So let's look at some of the most common movements and the gear used to move your camera. Pans and tilts work pretty much the same way. Both pivot on a static axis. You can perform these movements using either a tripod, monopod, or being handheld. To pan the camera, pivot the camera horizontally left or right. Wondering when to use a pan? Well, think about when you pan your head. Usually it's to follow some sort of action or reveal new information, like when you hear a sound and you look to see what it is. Pans do the same thing. Use a pan to follow a subject or reveal new information to the viewer. Panning really fast is called a whip pan. Think of a whip pan as turning your head really fast to look at something. Like panning, tilts are used to follow a subject, show distance, and reveal new information. It can also show the height of something. Just think about when you tilt your head. To tilt, just pivot the camera vertically up or down. Truck and dolly movements are very similar to each other. Both require the entire camera to move, often using a track system, wheels, or a slider. You can also just go handheld or use a gimbal and use your feet to move around. Truck movements are often used to follow a character or subject as they are moving. To truck the camera, move the entire camera right or left. Dolly shots are sometimes used to heighten the emotion of a shot, especially shots that slowly push in towards the subject. If the camera is moving away from the subject, it can show relief. To perform a dolly, just push the entire camera towards or pull it away from an object. One thing to keep in mind is the difference between a dolly and a zoom. While the camera isn't always moving, while zooming, it's meant to simulate dollying. But there's a distinct difference to how each looks. When dollying, the camera's position relative to its surroundings change, creating a sort of parallax or a perspective shift. Zooming just magnifies what's in view, making it look like we're getting closer, even though we're not. Both dollying and zooming are excellent tools that, when used properly, can really enhance your story. If you want to go super crazy, try a dolly zoom shot. This is sometimes referred to as a Zolly shot or the vertigo effect. To do this, just zoom the camera in while it's dollying out. And if you do it right, you can get some really cool effects. Like other movements, arcs are usually used to heighten emotion, possibly make the audience more excited or uneasy. To arc, simply move the camera in a curve or circle pattern around the character or subject. A pedestal is used to reveal new information. Pedestals often require a crane or other tool to move the entire camera up or down. Often, other movements like pans or tilts are combined with the pedestal movement. Finally, you might decide not to use any type of camera support and just go handheld. If you decide to go handheld, you gotta make sure to keep the camera as steady as possible. The best way to do this is to put the camera close to your body and move your entire body instead of your arms and hands. You can also use a camera strap to anchor the camera around your neck, giving it more stability. There are times when extreme camera shake is okay, but in many instances, it can be distracting. Simply put, if it distracts from your story, then you didn't do it right. Camera movement can add a ton of visual interest to your shots and really help tell meaningful stories. We have a lot of different tools to help you get really smooth, tasty movement like tripods, sliders, and gimbals. While these movements will no doubt require some practice to get good, it's definitely worth it to use them in your videos. So what are you waiting for? Now it's your turn to combine composition, shot size, angles, and movement to add more visual interest to your story and make it more engaging to watch.